Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry I did not bring any visual aid for you. Uh, this is just it. This is my speech. Uh, uh, what I'm curious about is how you landed up on these really big achievers and then also called me on the same day. But I would like to think that while the others are there because the others are present today because of their successes, I'm here because of very peculiar string of failures that I've had in my life. And that's what I'm going to talk about today because when I heard the theme, which is Sangam, where ideas unite, I fell into that same trap that the host here fell into, that it's different rivers and then them coming together, right? And but I realized that that's not true. And the person who made me realize that is the 6-year-old version of myself. Imagine this, it's 1996. I don't think most of you can imagine that. Most of you are not there. But it was the Cricket World Cup. India were playing the semi-final against Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka set us a target of 251 and Sachin Tendulkar was taking us there. At 101, he got out. And by the time some of us went to the bathroom and came back, we were 120 for 8. At that point, at the Eden Gardens, over a lakh people started throwing bottles and fruits and vegetables and set fire to the stands. Vinod calmly started crying. Looking at him, I started crying. And that day I decided that one day I'm going to become a sports presenter. Not Sachin Tendulkar, Harsha Bhogle. That was my dream as a 6-year-old. And that is what I wanted to do, wanted to be for the next 2 years. After which I saw a few movies, Indiana Jones, these National Treasure with Nicolas Cage and some other mummy films, and I wanted to become an archaeologist at a point where I couldn't spell archaeologist. But I wanted to be one. So I asked a few people who knew what the ASI was, and I inquired what you need to study to become an archaeologist. And I realized it requires a lot of science. So I thought, okay, let's take science. So I somehow managed to pass my 10th standard in first attempt. And I took science for 11th and 12th, like you all did. And that is what I consider my biggest mistake of my life. I scored 55%. My mother still thinks it's a typo. It wasn't a typo. She thought I was studying, I was playing FIFA. And that 55% was not a typo, it was a miracle that I somehow managed to get. And it was a miracle in more ways than one because that completely eradicated the possibility of me becoming one of you guys. I could never enter an engineering college with 55% marks in 12th standard, right? So I had to choose a different career. And somehow, some things happened in that month of May which I don't remember much, but I ended up at a journalism school. And the moment I entered there, it was a mass media course, it was a mass communication course, you learn about literature, you learn about journalism, ethics and stuff. And it was exciting. I wanted to become a journalist. I thought this is my way to go back and become the sports presenter that I wanted to be at 6. But by the second year, I realized that advertising is more fun. Because while journalism assignments used to be write a 500-word article and write an in-depth profile for 2,000 words, advertising assignments were write a 6-word story. And my own laziness always showed up. Writing 6 words is always better than writing 500. So I started working on that. I started working on being concise. I started working on being precise. I started working on being very succinct with my use of words. By that time, Twitter had popped up and it was not filled with trolls, so I could do a lot of things. It was, if it could be said in 140 characters, then it deserves to be said, is the philosophy with which I lived through the period of 2007 to 2010. But by the time I was in my final year, I attended this one film appreciation course and realized that all my life I wanted to be a filmmaker. not a sports presenter, not an archaeologist. All those things were just like my mind playing tricks on me. I always wanted to be a filmmaker, like Hitchcock or like Kashyap or like whoever that you think of. So I decided that after graduation, I'll look for some course that teaches me how to make films. And I found one, and I moved to Pune and I joined one. And in those 2 years of my post-graduation in film studies, I learned by going on 17 different short film shoots that I hate going on shoots. It's 54 days, you're standing for 12 hours lifting heavy lights. The director is yelling at you. The food is never on time, the chai is always cold, and it's awful. But I still loved cinema. But I realized that the only part of cinema that I like is the writing of it, the storytelling of it. And in screenwriting, I found a solution to not being on shoots, because now I sit at my desk and I write, exterior, mountaintop, dawn. And 50 people have to wake up at 3 in the morning, go to the mountaintop and shoot it. And if they do a good job, then people say, kya mast likha hai. So it's a win-win for me. So I thought I'll do that. I graduated, but screenwriting is a very difficult profession to break into. It has a very high barrier to entry. Not many 20-year-olds make it. So, and as a 20-year-old, you also want to secure some sort of income because your family is not going to look after you for the rest of your life. So I had to look for a job, and I found that job back in journalism. I became a journalist, but not a sports journalist. This was an entertainment beat, then I was moved to city, then I was moved to crime, then I was moved to sports again, then I wrote film reviews for a bit. But in those 2 years working in a newspaper, I learned two things. One is the discipline to write every day and to meet deadlines, which is the most important thing as a writer. What I also learned was that one thing this job could never give me was a disposable income. So I quit. And the only place in media when you're starting out and you need like a job that pays you enough money to pay rent and also eat food is advertising. So I found a job in advertising and I was good at it. I enjoyed doing it because Twitter, I knew how to write things in 6 words already. So I could write taglines pretty quickly, I could write pamphlets pretty quickly, I could write brochures if they wanted me to because of journalism experience. And I wrote really fast and a lot of things and a lot of ads. But somewhere that journalism ethos always stayed in me and I started hating advertising because at the end of the day, no matter how good an ad you write, how good a product it is, you are lying. You are not telling the full truth. And I was sort of getting used to telling the truth when I was a journalist. So I did not want to tell people that, like with my skills, I did not want to tell people that my biscuit is better than your biscuit. Or that every building that is cropping up in Pune is only 20 minutes away from the airport. They are all lying to you. And I did not want to keep on doing it, which is why I needed some outlet to tell the truth, and which is why I started doing stand-up comedy. And I often joke about this, but this is true, that I used to spend 9 to 5 telling lies so that, and then in the evening go out and tell the truth from the stage to people sitting in the dark just like this. And that was enough for a while, but after a while, even the 9 to 5 became too tedious. And last year I quit the job. Now I only had stand-up. But again, no disposable income. So I needed something that could also work for my kitchen and also work for my soul, right? So what I did was I started teaching. And I started to focus on my screenwriting while doing stand-up. Now these three things feel like they are so alien to one another, right? Stand-up comedy where I'm on stage with a spotlight on me, people are in the darkness, I say something and they laugh. That is the communication that happens. In a classroom, it's almost similar, but it's so much different. I don't have the pressure to make anyone laugh. But the pressures are different. These are challenging young minds looking at you for answers. And that's a different challenge. And with screenwriting, it's a whole other game. You're sitting alone at a desk, and writing hundreds of pages, spending hundreds of days on it, only for then some 6 or 8 other people who have to decide whether they want to spend 100 days of their lives making it. But while these three are very different professions, there are three things that make them very similar. One is the aspect of communication that is common throughout all three. You have to be good at communicating for being a good teacher, a good stand-up, or a good writer. The second element is the element of loneliness. These are all very lonely professions. And I have still not figured out why I'm drawn to these professions. As a teacher, you're lonely in the classroom. As a stand-up comedian, you're lonely on stage. You're always pitted against the audience. You're always in power, but also out of power at the same time. And as a writer, you're just lonely. You're at the desk, that cursor is always blinking at you, and you have to fill it. You have to fill 100 pages word to make a movie. So these are all lonely professions. And another thing that I realized that connects these three things is that I do them. I connect these three. And that's where I think the Sangam happens. The Sangam does not happen with my ideas, with your ideas. It happens within myself. These multitudes that exist within myself somewhere meet and create this present version of me. So, and it's because we have always been told, like if I asked any of you right now to think of what you are or what you want to be, you always think in terms of 2 or 3 nouns. Like even in my introduction, I was introduced as a screenwriter and a comedian and a poet. I do all those things, but I'm not all those things. I'm more than those. I like watering plants also. I like petting stray dogs. I like cooking. I'm an Arsenal fan. And it's just, I'm all of these things. And I'm still that 6-year-old who cried when Vinod Kambli also cried. All of those things exist within me, and there is some confluence of all of those contradictions and all of those paradoxes that exist within me. So why would I want to be one thing? Just earlier today, while I was on my way here, one of the students asked me, like, of the 3 things that you do, which one would you prefer? I don't have to choose one. I can do all 3. If I like doing 6 other things, I should be able to do those 2. Right? And one of my favorite science fiction authors, Robert Heinlein, has a very famous line which I like to quote all the time. He says that specialization is for insects. We are human. We need to know to do everything, from changing a diaper to starting a war. We need to know everything. So the next time someone asks you who you are or what do you want to be, don't just say something. Say everything. Thank you.